Hey everyone, this is Corine La Font, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And today I have with me Matthew Kazden, and we're speaking about how to cultivate strategic relationships. I want to be able to thank all the persons who are watching and listening to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you're invited to comment, engage with us, like, show some love, send some hearts our way. And of course, feel free to ask your questions live. It will be answered here by Matthew or myself or both of us at the same time, if you wish, or if you're shy, which we hope you're not, because you're supposed to be used to be my down. You can put your comments under the video wherever you're watching us from or listening to us, and you can be sure that we will respond to you accordingly. So let me tell you a bit about Matthew, and we're going to go straight into the discussion. I'm trying to retrieve his quick bio here. So Matthew Kazden is the International Development Specialist for Tangelic. We'll learn a little bit about that in a moment. A nonprofit that empowers communities with clean energy and sustainability solutions to combat climate change and energy poverty. In his role, he utilizes his background in geopolitics and international affairs to cultivate strategic relationships that empower communities and drive positive change in Africa. Awesome. I'm seeing some things in his bio that I definitely need to talk to him about. Welcome, Matthew, to Between the Lines.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. And I learned from him prior to coming live on the show that this is his first ever podcast. Am I honored or am I honored, people? Matthew, what am I saying the correct thing here?
Yes, that's correct. This is my first time on a podcast, and I'm excited it's with you today.
Wonderful. So we have to create a very good impression and give Matthew a very good experience so that he knows that any other podcast needs to talk between the lines. That's what they need to do, because this is the best podcast ever. So Matthew, we're talking about cultivating strategic relationships, and you sent me a video, a 2-minute video, which I posted earlier today about your cross-cultural communication tip in Spain. And I liked how you share that because you're doing some work in Africa, but are you in Africa right now?
I am not, no.
Where are you?
So I'm actually in California in the US right now.
And you're doing work that has an impact in Africa. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's correct. So we partner with a lot of organizations that are currently on the ground. Right now we're working in Ghana. So we have a lot of organizations helping us with the on the ground side of things right now.
Oh, and it's climate. I'm realizing you said clean energy. Tell us a bit about what Tangelic does.
Yeah, so Tangelic is a nonprofit organization that works with bringing clean energy to Africa. And right now, because we are a fairly new organization, we're starting in Ghana and are going to expand out from there. So our flagship.
So why Africa? Why Africa? Why you chose there? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of focus in on Africa since as part of the global South, they are the ones feeling the brunt of the effects of climate change while contributing by far the least amount of emissions, which is really unjust. So we wanted to work with the communities starting in Africa and kind of expand out to more of the global South from there down the road.
Okay, awesome. So how long have you been in climate energy, that type of arena? How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so since around a little before the pandemic, when I started undergrad, I focused in international relations, specifically in climate and global health. And then from there, I gained experience with an organization that works throughout Africa, throughout 20 some odd countries with indigenous groups and helping them adapt to the effects of climate change. And then from there, when I went to graduate school for my master's in international affairs, I focused more on the policy, geopolitics side of it.
Tell me about this geopolitics. Listen to me. This whole merging of terms and industries is getting to me. Geopolitics. Explain that.
So it's political science on steroids is a fun way to look at it. It's looking at
Political science on steroids. Okay.
yeah, so looking at how different events in politics around the world affect each other, and especially within given industries. So climate, for example, you have all these
Mhm.
countries that are part of these big organizations like the UN, for example, but they all have changing domestic politics, changing administrations, their own domestic things going on. So I think it's very important to kind of find a way
Mhm.
for, regardless of different administrations worldwide and different governments that are coming in and out of power, to stay focused and work towards the goal of decreasing greenhouse gases, which can be difficult with so many changing variables.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, you have actually honed a skill based on your training, your degree, your master's in a number of areas that would allow you to be able to do the kind of work that you're doing now. So I'm hearing change management. I'm hearing communication, which is my background. I'm hearing cultural adaptation. I'm hearing an openness in terms of um, what would you call that now? Policies, changes that need to take place in order to benefit. And I'm thinking to myself, persons who are looking to make changes in the world, to make the world a better place. Let's say like what Michael Jackson says, make the world a better place. We need to have a plethora or a number of skills that would allow us to really maximize the potential of what we're doing or maximize the impact of what we're doing. And there are some persons who just stick with a sort of specialized one focus type of thing, and they don't realize that you're dealing with people when it comes to effecting this change. And this is going to lead me to the other question I have for you. When you spoke about Spain and the cross cultural, and we're talking cultivating strategic
Mm.
relationships, how is it? What are the challenges that you find you face as somebody in California dealing with persons in Africa or the organizations, the NGOs that you're dealing with to
Mhm.
try and make an impact? What are the challenges you're facing?
Yeah, so I think one of the big challenges is kind of adjusting to how other work cultures are. Like, for example, my video I sent you, Spanish work culture is very different. I'm born and raised in the US, and we have
Mhm.
one work culture that differs greatly from Spanish work culture.
Mhm.
So that was definitely a challenge, a fun challenge. But I think adjusting to different cultures, like different professional cultures, and seeing things from others' point of view is a very big challenge and a very important one to get over. And I think when it comes to the work we're doing, it's one thing we prioritize is not just going in and saying, okay, here's how you could implement A, B, and C. It's really working with the communities on the ground, seeing what their challenges and struggles are and how we can help, because there's
Mhm.
some things you don't know just through research. Some things you have to go on the ground, talk to the people living through it to actually find out how you could best be of assistance. And I think
And
that,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, sorry, I was going to say, I think, so yeah, one of the biggest challenges is, I guess, a mix of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and listening to them and kind of seeing it through a new viewpoint, as well as working with different business cultures, which I both find to be fun challenges to work around.
Awesome. And I'm glad you said that because a lot of people in leadership, let's use quote unquote leadership positions, believe they know what is best for everyone else without asking, without asking the persons that they think it's best for, what do they want? Yeah, we assume people need this, people need that in order to be more quote unquote civilized or have certain things, but that's really not what they want. And you have to ask people what they want in order to give them what they want for them to be happy, for them to be contented. Probably the other things that the leaders think that they want could come after, but their priority is something else, and we need to ask, and that is important. Now, you are based in California. Have you ever been to Ghana itself to really see the situation? Have you interacted with the people on the ground, following upon the point you just made?
I have not yet, since we are still a fairly young organization, but in the future, I plan to definitely make a handful of trips out there and see the work we're doing on the ground, meet everyone working with face to face, not screen to screen.
Wonderful. Because I think, I don't know, I'm just thinking to myself, we have a perspective when we're away from the situation, and when you actually mix with the natives and you actually live and sleep amongst people,
Mhm.
you actually hear and see and know what life is really like. To be able to give them probably more, or probably a different twist of what it is that you're probably trying to deliver and impact on their lives. But cultivating strategic relationships, again, Matthew, that word cultivate is important to me because it says building over time. It says being patient. I don't know if you agree with this, but cultivating means just like how you would have land and you're a farmer, you cultivate the land, right? So you take the time, you assess the situation, you decide which seeds would work, which seeds to plant where and what type of soil, and you take time to groom it. It comes just like having children. You cultivate children. I just added that in. You cultivate children by helping them to groom because they're like plants. You
Yeah.
love them, you nurture them, you water them sometimes, and you do what is necessary to make them into beautiful, beautiful little kids, beautiful little plants that can blossom and bear fruit. Yes. So when it comes to cultivating strategic relationships, especially over borders, cultures, ethnicity, races, languages, all these things, what are some tips that you can share with us today to help persons who probably, because we're in a remote environment now, and people are working in the same way like you, dealing with other cultures, languages, and all sorts of different things. What are some tips you can share for persons in the workplace, or even carrying out a job like what you're doing, or even having to relate to someone in another country, different background? How can we cultivate strategic relationships? Share some tips with us.
Yeah, so I first want to say I love the analogy of planting a seed in your farm because I think it's very accurate. Relationships like this, especially in the professional world, you do need to plant that seed and just wait, like grow that relationship over time, which is incredibly
Mhm.
important, especially when you're dealing with types of work that where like policy and legislation is heavily involved. You do need to grow those relationships. Regarding your question and some challenges, yeah, no, the virtual aspect, it does throw in some challenges because we've been so used to everything being face to face
Yes,
until
please.
COVID hit in 2020 or so. However, that being said, I think it also provides an opportunity because you could connect with people so much easier. And it's
Yeah.
just everyone's so adapt to Zoom now. It's like a second language for everyone at this point. So I think it provides really good opportunities as well. I've been able to connect with people I probably never would have pre-COVID, and the shift
Mhm.
to a heavier virtual presence. So I think that's definitely one of them. The virtual environment can be a bit challenging, but
Mhm.
I think one tip to overcome this and just grow these relationships would be to, I don't want to say target, but kind of know like who would be best for you, which seed to plant if you only have so much space on your farm. So strategically figuring out, okay, this person, they have a lot of experience in A, B, and C, which is what I want to bring into my business, or I want to get more involved in or get more experience in. And
Mhm.
knowing who the best person is to reach out and just build a relationship from there, because with that also comes a greater network you have. Time and time again, especially through graduate school, I I networked my butt off, and you never know what that could lead to. I have met incredible people and had these great opportunities just because I network with someone I thought would be helpful, and they're like, "Oh, this isn't my expertise, but I know someone. This is right up their alley." They introduced me. The rest is history. So I think
Yeah.
one big tip is just network, network, network.
Yeah. Yeah. Networking is always a very good business strategy. And I think for me, when I do it, I don't have any expectations. I don't come in with this whole idea, I need to collect so many business cards or collect so many names. It's really about that relationship, seeing where the connection lies. Could I help you? And it may not even come from a could I help you perspective. Just get to know, and probably down the road, there may be something that may come up. And I may be able, not through me directly, but I may know somebody else who may be able to help that particular person. And so it's always fun to see people add value, yeah, to my life as well as I add value to theirs, you know. But strategic relationships, cultivating that relationship and building upon that whole planting and farming analogy like we're using, you know, there's some seeds that just don't grow. They just, they just don't grow. And you might be trying your best, giving it the love, giving it the attention. You have done all the right things, and it just doesn't grow. Is it the soil? Is it the environment you're in? Is it something with you, the farmer, us? You know, what is it? You know, that no matter what you do, some things just don't grow. And at what point do you decide in that cultivation that you need to probably just stop? No longer plant that seed or encourage that relationship, or maybe consider alternatives. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean that does unfortunately happen sometimes, and I think there's definitely a lot of variables in play given the
Mhm.
specifics of the case. But I think, you know, at a certain point you have to look at if you're putting so much into this relationship or this seed planting, let's say, and you're just not getting nearly enough out of it, in your opinion. I mean, sometimes you do have to kind of move on. Not that there has to be any hard feelings by any means, but you know, you got to do what's best for you, meet new
Mm.
people as you see fit.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking even global relationships, or
Mhm.
probably it shouldn't be you. Remember, you mentioned earlier, um, looking at the type of people that you're meeting and deciding this is the best person to probably approach or to ask for something or to leverage. It may not be you. You may think, okay, this particular seed is not doing well with me. It probably doesn't
Mhm.
like me. Mm. And so, and so let me probably call in Matthew. It may like Matthew. There's something special about Matthew, that when it touches the seed, that when Matthew touches the seed, it works. Because we have seen that, I'm sure, Matthew, in our little lifetime, where you're like, how come they get along? And and what it is with me, and you start to question yourself, and it may not be anything with you. It may be
Mhm.
just that energetic frequency, vibrant, vibrational frequency, that they just sync on a particular level, and so it's not necessarily you. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, sometimes it's just not meant to be, and some people click better than others. I mean, you could work at it as much as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, some things aren't meant to be, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And the key is to let it go and don't blame yourself. The key is to let it go and don't blame yourself. And don't think that something is wrong with you. I think that's the worst thing to do when you're cultivating relationships. It's like what I said before. What's wrong with me? How is Matthew getting along with Sharon? And Sharon doesn't like me. No, it's don't ever blame yourself. Not everybody is meant to connect or vibes, as we say, together. And that translates in business relationships and collaborations as well. I like the work that you're doing in Africa, because it is so diverse. I mean, I haven't been to Ghana yet, or the continent of Africa. I would love to. I hear it's quite majestic, beautiful. I know people from there, so I would love to visit sometime. And I am aware, not in detail, of the challenges that they have. And historically, from what I've read, it's amazing to me that Africa is undergoing this type of challenge, knowing that they were the richest country in the world. So,
Mhm.
it's something has happened, and I would love for somebody to reach out to me to educate me on that. I know there must be hundreds of thousands of books on it, but if anybody is listening to this and probably want to jump on the show and discuss it with me as to how Africa got in this position, I would certainly entertain a discussion, because it is shocking to me. But I love that the work that you're doing, and I'm sure others are doing in Africa, and hope to hear and see you via pictures, Matthew. You need to share the pictures when you get down to Africa and show me
Yes.
what you're doing in Africa. I would love to see that.
Yes,
Yeah,
I definitely will. Well, I mean, as our work goes on, Tangelic, we're posting online on all the social medias, all the great work we're doing, including on the ground. So definitely to the viewers, catch up on social
tag me,
media.
tag
Well,
me, tag me, Matthew. I
yes.
need to see what you what you're doing. Besides Africa, do you find that you have to pull in other organizations, entities, stakeholders from outside of the US and Africa to make the project that you're working on more effective in Africa? Are you looking external to that?
Yeah, so we have, our partners on the ground in Ghana that we're working with, as well as organizations based worldwide for more on
Mhm.
the supplier side and just like advice. So, for example, one of our big initiatives, our Sunrise Spectrum, we're working to provide not just clean cook stoves, but solar community grids,
Mhm.
which have a range of benefits from, well, let's start with the clean cook stoves because I brought that up first. A, it's definitely better for the environment with the greenhouse gas emission side of things, which also leads to less fumes inside the houses because traditional food there, it's like a
Mhm.
high heat, long cook time. So that's a lot of emissions being released inside the house. So the clean
Wow.
cook stoves help with that. And then shifting to the community solar grid, I'm zooming out a bit on that. That also, well, provides electricity that's clean, renewable,
Mhm.
and reliable, as well as the cascade of effects it has. For example, with that comes longer study times for children because they can study past dark. So that increases educational outcomes. It also helps with women's equity, helps on the economic side of things by providing jobs and creating this reliable electricity for people to grow their businesses. So there's definitely a lot of exciting things on
Yeah,
that
there are a
end.
lot of spin-offs as a result of
Hmm.
just one thing, which is
Yeah.
really what you want to do, which is really what you want to do. You don't just want to do one thing and it just does that
Hmm.
one thing. You want to have a rippling effect. Yeah, so that there's impact. That's really what impact is, having a
Exactly.
broad-based impact. Yes. This
Exactly.
is
So, oh,
Mhm.
sorry. I was going to
No,
say,
no, keep
going
going.
back to your questions, yeah, we have partners on that side of things, like on the
Mhm.
tech side of things with different suppliers and experts in these fields to kind of help us be the most effective version of what we can, really.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I need to get to California again. I was there a few
Yeah.
years ago. So clearly, when I get to California, I need to come and see you and meet your partners and people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you're going to be telling them about this interview here, this podcast, because it helps to talk about the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And so they can also use this to be able to promote and let people know, more about the type of intervention that they're doing down
Mhm.
there in Africa. This is awesome, Matthew. But coming back to the point about cultivating again, I think we are very good farmers today after this episode. About cultivating strategic, and the focus here now would be on strategic. It's not every relationship. I think we hinted at it before that you need to develop. It has to be
Mhm.
one that would add value and that will have the type of impact. How do you decide which relationships to pursue? What kind of a criteria would you consider? Because everybody may come to you and say, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. But you have to decide what and who makes sense and have a sort of criteria to determine, is this going to be worth
Hmm.
pursuing? Just like any relationship, a guy comes to you, he starts to talk to you or sort of thing, or a girl
Yeah.
comes to you, and you're like, yeah, yeah, you sound nice, but
Hmm. Yeah.
you know, this is
Yeah.
not going anywhere. First date and last date, that was it.
Yeah.
Tell me. Mhm.
Yeah, so I think a very important aspect is not just how this could help you in the future, but the other way around and how it could be mutually beneficial because no one's going to want to kind of go into a relationship in that sense when it's
Mhm.
just so one-sided. So I find it's very important to find a way that it's mutually beneficial to both organizations, parties,
Mhm.
etc.
Mm-hmm. What sort of criteria do you use to determine that that is going to be
Mm.
mutually beneficial? Because this is
Well, yeah.
strategic here now. You have to be very meticulous. Some women may have their list, check off the list. Is he 6 feet? Is he buff? Is he working here?
Exactly.
Is he making this sort of income? What's your what's your list?
Yeah, so my list looks a little bit different than that.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
No, but some things I guess on the list, as you would say, if like if this person or organization or body or whatever would be able to help our both on the personal level and on the organizational level help maximize our impact in the work we do. So for example, if
Mhm.
we are able to work with a consultant that has decades and decades and all this experience in this specific sector, we think, okay, that'd be beneficial to us, obviously, because we'd be getting the expertise, and
Mhm.
we could be beneficial to them by kind of adding to their experience and maximizing their impact on the specific work they're doing, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day helping more people in Ghana.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my list. I would do some due diligence. Besides him being 6 feet and buff and the income and all this,
Yeah.
I am going to be doing my due diligence. I'm going to do my background check. And I think that's basically like what you're saying. You do your background check, see if he committed
Yes.
any crimes, you know,
Yeah, no, you
how
definitely
many
have to do
traffic.
your home. Yeah, you definitely have to do your homework and research on
Yeah,
all
yeah.
this.
How many traffic tickets he got, you know, how many children he has with how many other women, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did. Yeah. You check all of
Yeah.
that, and you look. You kind of stalk him out on the workplace. Sometimes, you don't. He doesn't know that you're looking at him. You talk to his friends,
Yeah.
and then you say, okay, I've watched him for about 6 months or a year, and I think I collected enough. And you watch it for a while and you test it against other things and say, okay,
Yeah.
now I can go out with you. I'll take the chance to go out with you on a first date. That's after a year of checking it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely you got to do your fair share of homework.
Of course, do your homework, people. A lot of you women and men get caught because you're not doing your homework. Yeah. It's strategic relationships we're talking. And I mean, it might sound funny, and me and Matthew are laughing here, but a lot of what we're saying is adaptable and quite practical and can be implemented and transferred into cultivating strategic relationships in the workplace. And especially when you're crossing borders and having
Mhm.
international discussions and impact, the same approach applies. It might sound funny, but it is true. It works.
Oh, it's very true. Definitely, if you're dealing with organizations or people from a different culture or country,
Mhm.
really, really do your homework on
Do
the
your
work
homework. Yeah.
tendencies and business culture.
Yeah, get references. You can ask for references, interview the references, get something written, formal, check into their background and know that they're on the up and up, right, Matthew?
Yeah.
Matthew, thank you so much for spending time with me. Is there anything before we sign off that you want to share with the audience?
I just want to thank you again for having me. This is, like you said, this is my first podcast, so I'm really happy this is my first podcast experience. And to the listeners, when it comes to clean energy and sustainability, because I got to give my shout out, definitely get involved. Look at policies in your local communities or countries. Support nonprofits and grassroots organizations because they really do make a big impact. And thank you again for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you so much. And thank you on that note as well, Matthew, for being such a wonderful guest. And thank you for choosing Between the Lines to be your first podcast. I'm sure it won't be your last. And to Tangelic for the work that they're doing in Africa, thank you so much. Do as much work as you can do to help the people there. And to persons who are watching, listening, whether now with us live or the replay, we appreciate you. Please feel free to leave your comments, questions, feedback, send us some love. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here on Between the Lines.